Now then, everyone, welcome to the Wedding Mavericks podcast with Lyndsey and Jules, a podcast for wedding videographers and photographers where we discuss all aspects of running your business, developing technical knowledge and skills, and pushing your creativity.
Today, we are actually out on location. We're staying in a hotel this evening, which is where we're recording this for you.
One off away from the kids, isn't it?
One into it, yeah. So it might sound a little bit different this week coming to you because we've got certainly a more minimalistic setup.
Our mobile setup.
Mobile setup, yes. So we have this with us because, as I said, we're on location. We're staying in a hotel right now because tomorrow we have the first wedding of 2022.
Exciting stuff.
It is exciting. We've had a little bit of a break.
Yeah, a nice break. It was just before
weddings.
Christmas, wasn't it, the last one?
Yeah.
Which for us, I would say is pretty typical. We don't do it. Over the years, we haven't done tons of January weddings.
Yeah. No, because I guess
I'm glad we had a break this time.
Yeah,
Crikey.
Absolutely, yeah. What a crazy year, a busy year, or busy 6-7 months.
Last year
year's
was.
worth crammed into, yeah.
Yeah.
So what we thought we'd do for this week's podcast, because in previous weeks we've been very much focused, haven't we? We started this series of podcasts off looking at our goal setting for the year ahead. We've talked a lot about how you might structure those goals for yourself. We've looked at pricing, working out what your costs are, and also then Jules went into some detail last week about how we actually work out our hourly rate. But this week we thought we'd do something a little bit different, with it being the first wedding of this new year. We thought we would go through, because in the last few days it's certainly something that we've had to kind of switch back onto. Yeah, get back into wedding mode, as it were. So we thought that for this week's podcast, because there might be some of you who have already started your weddings for the year already, there might be some of you that within the next few weeks, month or so, you will actually be back in the position where you'll be looking at your first wedding for the year also. So that's where we thought we would start for this week, preparing for your first wedding, or preparing for that first shoot of the year.
And it could be that you're preparing for your first wedding, as in you've never done a wedding before.
Yeah,
so if you're listening to this and you've never done a wedding before, the idea of this is to help you think about some of the things that might come up that you haven't thought about. You may have thought about these things, but some of the things you might not have thought about. And basically just to also kind of for anybody who's been doing this for 10 years or more, they're still, when you've had a break, it's easy to kind of get out of the mindset of weddings. When you're doing them week in, week out, it's automatic. But you have a little break and it's easy to get out of that flow. So we thought we'd just quickly go through. We're not going to dwell on each topic, are we? We're just going to kind of go through it. So if we sort of start off, I guess I'll start with the more technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So batteries. It sounds ridiculous actually saying to somebody who does this for a living, make sure you've charged your batteries.
Mm-hmm.
But I promise you, everybody who's listening to this who's been doing it a while will be able to relate to the time where they didn't get those batteries charged, or they didn't charge enough batteries, or they didn't have enough batteries.
Yeah.
And so the reason to mention about batteries and charging batteries is for me, I have to have a routine. I have to have this. I know that, like, for me, Lyndsey doesn't do as much of this, or hasn't in the past. But for me, I have to have such a routine when it comes to doing batteries.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, I know that I'll not have enough charged for the day.
Yeah.
And the main thing for us is that, you know, we don't want to be getting to later on in the day and thinking, crap, we're running out of batteries. It's the last thing you want.
Yeah.
You're there to do a professional job. Last thing you want is to be running out of batteries. So it's huge. And I've bought more and more batteries over the years.
Yeah.
Far more than we actually use or need, just because I've got close to the point where we're running out of batteries. I don't want to be charging batteries. I know some people will charge them as the day goes on when they get a break and things like that. I don't want to be doing that, because what happens if you can't? And then, crap, what you do if you can't shoot with your camera because you've got no batteries? So, huge.
Yeah.
Making sure you've got the batteries.
Sorry, just to interrupt you then. So,
Sure.
let's think about photography and then videography. So, we are filming.
Different, yeah.
We're filming a wedding tomorrow. So, roughly how many batteries would you say that two of us on a wedding film, how many batteries might we go through in a day?
We're shooting with Sony cameras. We're shooting with the newer style Sony cameras that take the FZ100 batteries. We also do have the older style Sony cameras that take the smaller FP50 batteries. I'm going to say each camera will use 3 to 4, and it will depend on what we're shooting in for video.
Yeah.
You know, if we're shooting 4K, which we are at the moment with the cameras we've got, like we're filming now on the A7S III, that'll use 3 or 4 batteries for a full day.
Okay.
So if you've got 2 or 3 cameras, that's 8 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
It does depend on the wedding as well, because I've done weddings where we've used 2 to film it. Yeah?
Yeah.
But it depends on length for the ceremony, it depends on length for the speeches, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what I'd say is, you know, it also depends on the type of camera, because the different cameras, like the Sony A1, that eats through batteries.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the same question then for photography. So
well,
when
that's
you're
a different
doing
story.
photos,
I reckon if you if it's very rare that we're solely doing photography. We're usually doing it with video as well. I'd say if you probably can do 1 or 2 batteries a day if you're doing photo with the same cameras. But you know, if you're using 1 or 2 batteries, have 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And you've got to think that's per camera as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're doing photo, 1 battery in each camera, if you're using 2 cameras, probably do you for a day with these batteries and these cameras. But if you're shooting video, definitely need a lot of batteries.
Yeah.
Said batteries a lot there. So, moving on. SD cards. Might sound obvious, but there are plenty of stories about people who have gone to the wedding and not put SD cards in the cameras, or not brought extra SD cards with them. They get to the wedding and they've got the cameras, they've got the batteries, they can't shoot anything because they don't have any SD cards in them, or CF cards, or whatever it is that you're using. So, you know, for me, always have more SD cards than you need. Always have spare ones. I've packed spare ones upon spare ones upon spare ones. We've got, at this point, we've got so many batteries and so many SD cards that we can't possibly run out.
Yeah.
But you know, these are things to think about, and make sure you prep the camera. We're going to go on to that, but prep the camera the night before, because putting them SD cards in is a big step. Because if you don't put those SD cards in and you just assume they're going to be in there because they were in the last shoot, oh my goodness, you know, and they're still in the card reader that you've downloaded.
Yeah.
Terrible. So.
And I suppose size of the SD cards as well.
Oh, definitely.
Because I think we've less so now, but sort of more so in the early days, noticed a few photographers
running out of space.
Yeah, so we might get to group shots.
They're changing cards halfway through.
They're changing cards halfway through, and there's you know, and as I say, we're going back here, but you know, noticing like a moment of panic almost, or you know, right, we're doing couples portraits.
Yeah.
Just hang on there a second. I just need to change my cards. So I think, but now, certainly is the higher memory card, the bigger capacity memory cards. They're more reasonable in price now.
Capacity memory cards, and
yeah.
I think going back, and we were actually talking about this stuff way more than I expected, but because it's a big deal, I suppose. But like bigger memory cards, you know, there used to be a bit of a thing of don't use bigger memory cards because you might lose parts of the day, so you should switch the memory cards out, and then if something happens to the memory card, you lose less of it.
I see.
What I'd say is we've got 2 memory cards in these cameras now. They're all dual. Most of the cameras are dual memory card. You know, you would hope that 2 memory cards won't fail. So don't think of it like that anymore, I'd say you go with the bigger memory cards.
Okay.
And it just makes it simpler. You're not taking them in and out all the time.
Yeah.
That's that anyway. So checking your cameras, I'm going to try and go a bit quicker now because we've talked about that in quite some detail, but checking that your crikey, what's going on? Checking that your cameras are all working correctly, you know, just switching them on, using them before, if you've not used them for a couple of months like we have, you know, you need to make sure they're working. Just take a few pictures or record and just watch it back and make sure everything's cool. Cleaning your lenses, cleaning your sensors potentially. You know, your sensors will get dirty and you will notice your sensors. You will think everything's cool, but it's you go and shoot that wedding, and for whatever reason you had to stop your aperture down, and you'll be like, oh my god, you know, how many like dust particles and bits are on my footage. So it's just really a good idea to be thinking about cleaning this stuff and making sure it's ready to go. Ensuring your audio stuff and your lighting equipment or anything else, you know, like your drones, your gimbals, if you're a videographer and you're using those pieces of equipment, are good to go, and that their internal and external batteries and memory are ready to go. So something, for instance, like a Sony TX650 that a lot of videographers are using to capture their audio, you know, they've got an internal battery and internal memory. So format it, you know, before you start recording loads of weddings. Make sure there's plenty of space on there, because if you don't format them regularly, you know, you might have like a stack of old wedding stuff on there, and then you might not be able to record anymore. And make sure it's all charged up and everything. And then we're going into like bags. You know, you need to pack your bags in advance. I'd say then at least the night before, if not a couple of days before. Make sure you've got everything you need: straps, harnesses, tripods, stands. I think what we find is once wedding season's underway, your stuff's in your bags and it only comes out, you know, you charge your batteries, you download your footage, and everything else needs to be in there. But in the quieter season, you can take that stuff out, can't you?
Yeah.
And then you know, once it's out, there's a chance you didn't put it back in, or you didn't organise it in a way where you can find things. So, yeah. What about the kind of other logistics? Because we've gone through equipment there. What about the logistics of planning a route?
Yeah. So, looking at, you know, today, for example, we set off to come here to Whitby.
How far is it?
South Yorkshire, so a couple of hours drive, if that. A little bit less than. So normally there was a set route that we just normally get onto.
We do this route a lot.
A64, to head out towards the coast. Hadn't even taken note. Put the postcode in and just took it for granted. And like you said, you were on autopilot,
I was
weren't
at third
you? You were
lane
going to
on
go
M1 going north.
You just thought that you'd be going the normal route to it. However, it was taken as a completely different direction, and if it hadn't have been for you noticing the overhead signs on the motorway, the boards on the motorway, saying that there was to avoid the A64, and then looked at traffic updates and it said in excess of 3 hours delay. So number one, thank goodness that you'd seen those, because we weren't listening or paying attention to
there's no point listening to sat nav when you're a couple of miles from home.
Yeah, absolutely. And number two, I'm certainly glad that we made the choice to come and stay up here the night before.
Yeah.
I mean, it was only because of the adverse weather that we've been having here, because of the storms recently, that last week we were sort of saying, you know, it's right up at the coast. What if there's another storm that kind of hits? We don't want to have the kind of the stress and the worry
trying
to get there on the morning, when it's a couple of hours journey at best anyway, from where we live, but we don't know what kind of conditions or challenges we might face on the way. So that just reinforces that the kind of investment, if you like, to pay for travel. We've not charged the couple for that because that's a decision that we've made week before the wedding. So to plan to come and stay at the hotel. So we're here. We're 5 minutes away from the venue.
And that's the best way of doing it for a stress-free situation.
Yeah.
But obviously, you've got to build that cost in. We've charged enough for this wedding to feel like we can do that without it being a bad decision.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, but you've got to make sure you're charging enough to do that. So knowing your route, looking on the maps prior to setting off, a day or a couple of days in advance, or even longer than that maybe. Also consider the between locations to do with the wedding. What if there's a church in one location, prep in another location, reception in another location? Have a look at this. See how far those things are. Look at potential issues that could happen.
Yeah.
Look at how you're going to get between those things. If you're driving a car, what if something happens and you don't really know the area and you can't get on the road that you thought you'd be able to get? I looked the other day at a wedding I'm doing in a couple of weeks, a few weeks from now, around York, and I was like, why when the church is there and the venue's there, why half a mile away from each other, why is it saying it's going to take me nearly 20 minutes to get from one place to the other, right? This is on the maps. I look on and I'm like, this road between the venue and the thing is closed and you've got to drive all the way around. And I was like, whoa. And it's probably because of flooding, because there's a lot of rivers and stuff around there. But I was like, so hopefully that won't be there in a few weeks. But I was, that was a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of stuff you can run into. And like, imagine you're in central London or whatever, built up city somewhere. You've just got to think about these things, because the traffic, I know when we've shot stuff in London or even other cities, you've got to really...
Parking as well.
Well, I mean, we usually do the tube if we're in somewhere like London, don't we? But you've got to think about parking, you've got to think about routes and all that stuff. And you get this info by asking in advance. So we do a questionnaire with a couple. They fill that out in a few months before, and then we have a chat with them a month out, and we make sure that these things are covered. Yeah. And it's about as much as finding things out, but also setting expectations. What's possible and what's not possible. Yeah, absolutely. Because you've got to, for our clients on our packages, we will say that travel up to 70 miles or within a couple of hours is normally we're quite happy with on the day of your wedding. That's a distance that's manageable for us, because if you think about it, to travel, you'll do the driving, but if that's a couple of hours, that's 2 hours either side of the wedding day itself, so that's an additional 4 hours of a day that you are adding on to that. So you've got to consider, we do often, or we have often in the last sort of few episodes talked about our own kind of health and well-being and things like that. So already when we're looking at a 10-12 hour day, that's an additional sort of 4 hours on top. So in terms of, I mean, that's not a recommendation to you, that's where we're sort of comfortable with doing. Absolutely. So for you, that's got to be a consideration of your own sort of personal preference. We're able to consider taking bookings within a number of different regions from where we live because we drive, but there might be a number of you out there. So Jules talked about London, for instance, or of course other cities around the UK. It might be that you're city based, but you don't have access to your own vehicle, so you're relying on perhaps public transport or taxis, something like that, to get you around. Ubers. All the cool kids using Ubers on the wedding day. So definitely, in terms of travel on the wedding day,
not only do you need to think about how you're going to navigate around different venues that it might be, you also need to just think about if you are going to accept bookings that are a little bit further afield than, say, just for reference, that couple of hours, just like we have for tomorrow's wedding, just consider it in advance. You know, are you going to think about staying somewhere else? Do you need to stay somewhere, you know, crikey, to take it to an extreme? We had an inquiry for Scotland for a wedding next year. So for us, we need to think about not only travelling there the day before, but actually we're going to need to think about accommodation for the night of the wedding as well. So that's a Saturday wedding.
Drive, isn't it? Yeah,
definitely. That's 4 hours when I looked at it.
That's another thing. We do drive back, don't we? Sometimes.
Yeah.
So we might be 3 or 4 hours away, but we will drive back sometimes. But I think near Glasgow's, you know, even that's a long drive.
From where that's a really long drive.
At 10 o'clock at night. That's a long drive.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just think about that as well. You know, think about those travel logistics. To kind of take that one step further, then when you're thinking about the location, okay, so you've thought about how you're going to arrive there, you've thought about how you're going to navigate around on the wedding day as well. You also need to think about that location in its own right. Are we talking about one single location? For the wedding venue, is that going to be where you are based for prep, for the ceremony, and then for the reception as well? Or do you have a number of different locations to consider? Okay, so whether it's one or it's several, if it's not somewhere that you have been before, you might need to do a little bit of research online first. Okay, just find out about the venue in its own right. If you're having to consider a church within that, you certainly need to be thinking about contacting.
Definitely don't rely on the church being cool. Some really great,
some stories there.
Religious people out there, but like sometimes it can be difficult. It's good to know in advance.
Yeah, unfortunately, just on previous experience, there are fewer, unfortunately, positive experiences just from the not the ceremony here. I'm talking about not the preferences of the couple. I'm just talking about the permission or kind of the
how they allow you to be and capture the ceremony.
Yeah, and it will be different for every single one. So definitely,
and if you get somebody who's difficult,
it can make
it's
it
not
quite
it's
challenging
not about
for you.
It can, but I mean the way we see it is you just get on with it and you just do whatever you got. You just do your job. And you tell the couple, I'm really sorry, but they won't let me stand where I need to stand. But it's not you or them that miss out, it's the couple. Yeah.
And then so as part of your preparation, what you should be doing is contacting the church, just trying to establish who's going to be conducting that ceremony for you, because what you do want to do is, at the end of the day, you're a professional, so what you do want to do is be contacting the person that's going to carry out that ceremony.
Try and make it smooth.
Just explain, just introduce yourself, explain the way in which you like to operate during that ceremony, and then of course just take on board what their kind of restrictions or just the boundaries within which they want you to be able to operate. And there's often very little that you can kind of do about that. So
I think what we found is if you schmooze them, you don't lose them.
Oh my gosh.
And now I'm coming out with some cheesy shit.
Oh dear.
But I do think you've got to just you've got to really butter them up a little bit, don't you think? No.
Yeah, I think I think perhaps being professional, approaching it in a professional manner and a polite and a courteous manner.
You got to
being respectful
got to give them some
of
bollocks, and you've got to basically say, look, I'm going to really respect everything, blah 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 blah, and do that. Stand in one location, but as long as you can get to the front, because some of them don't let you get to the front, and then you're in trouble, aren't you?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
Churches aside, whatever the venue that you will you'll perhaps be or number of venues that you'll be attending on the day, it's the right thing to do to contact those places in advance. And there are more and more venues nowadays that are asking to see a copy of a public liability insurance document before the wedding day. So this shouldn't be something that should catch you out on the day. This is sort of something that should be, it's an administrative task that the coordinator should have kind of liaised with you about before the day anyway. So just be prepared for that in advance. Other things in terms of your location you might want to consider, what if you're planning to use a drone on the day, and that goes for videographers but photographers also.
Yeah.
Okay, because a number of photographers that we've worked with, if the location is particularly challenging, there's not a lot of outdoor space, it might well be that the photographer decides, or you might decide as a photographer on the day, that you're going to put the drone up. So for that big group shot, because of the availability of what's outside for you within that environment, it might be beneficial for you to get the group shot in that way. So what you need to be doing, whether you're a photographer or videographer here, is of course ensuring that you need to check the airspace, what the weather's going to be like in advance, all the things that you would do as part of having the permission to be able to use the drone in the first place for commercial reasons.
Which has changed since you did it, Lynds. Lynds did all the qualifications, didn't you? So
yeah, that ancient PFCO business. Yeah. So of course you want to check that your qualifications are up to date now because of the recent change. But again, that's something you're going to want to mention to the venue as well. Okay. In addition to that then, so moving on slightly from the location, other suppliers that are involved.
Yeah.
Out of kind of courtesy. So tomorrow we are doing film only. There is a photographer that will be there. And so what we've done just out of courtesy is contact the photographer, introduce ourselves, just give a little line. And I know there's a bit of a mixed opinion on this, of whether or not to do it, and I think I'm probably thinking more so of the kind of American-based podcasts and vlogs that I've seen to do with you kind of introducing yourself as the videographer and saying, this is how we kind of like to approach the day, not because we're trying to mark our territory, not at all, because that's not our style.
It's building a rapport. For me, it's building a rapport.
Yeah, and it's just kind of, it's trying to put everyone sort of at ease, because we know that there are photographers who unfortunately have had bad experiences previously with videographers and vice versa. So for me, I think just because it's kind of within our personalities anyway, that we would kind of just want to upfront just introduce ourselves, just kind of give that little bit of courtesy. And
we do it anyway. We do it whatever. But under these circumstances, if you want the day to go nice and smooth, I think it's something you should be thinking about doing. So yeah, because we do both, it's slightly different. We can see it from both sides, and I do kind of think sometimes the photographer can feel a certain way about the people doing video. Because of the way that they're being, and obviously that goes vice versa. And I just think that building that rapport by contacting them, just so that they understand you. Honestly, every single time that we've reached out prior to the wedding day and just sent them a really kind of laid back, cool email, I had nothing but the best experience working alongside another photographer.
Yeah.
So yeah, really suggest that you do that.
Yeah. Well, the last couple of things that are kind of important considerations for me, just because I get headaches so easily, so kind of snacks and hydration for me are really, really important on the day, because you can be on the go from as early as, I think the earliest for us has been 7 a.m. that we've started.
Well, started at the place.
But actually got up and
5.
Yeah.
4, 5.
Just think about how early you might be starting your day. Some of you might prefer to do it on an empty stomach. Just personally for me, I need something in my tummy to kind of
I'm cool on the empty
get me
stomach.
going. But as well, water. through the day.
Definitely a big one. When people talk about the wedding hangover,
Yeah,
it's because they didn't drink through the. Well, that's one of the reasons. The other one is just it's a fucker of a day. But you know, like.
I mean, we always bring water bottles with us. We get a little multi-pack of small bottles, don't we, just in case, and have plenty with us. But actually, sometimes, you know, you've got your kit bag with you, but at certain elements in the day, it's just not practical for you to have this kind of hip flask with you where you've got water with you all the time. So just as and when you get the opportunity, make sure that a little bite of a snack, hydration, definitely keep that up through the day because that's going to keep you going through a very long day. And
you'll feel it. You won't necessarily feel it in the morning or in the afternoon, but you know, it's that later on, that drive home, you know, when you feel that tiredness kick in, part of that tiredness is because you got up early and part of that tiredness is because you didn't drink enough or eat enough.
Yeah.
So,
and you've got to think about if you've not just got one wedding that weekend.
Yeah, if you've got 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Can you imagine as well, you're putting your body through some stuff, aren't you? You're like, you know, not putting any liquids or any food in all day, and then you get this huge roast dinner that the couple have provided for you or the catering company have put in front of you, and you smash this food down and then you're like, whoa, I need a nap. You know, and you've had that Diet Coke, with all that aspartame or whatever it's called.
That's what it'll be. That'll be why I get the headaches. So just look after yourselves as well. It's one thing making sure that you're prepped and ready for the day and your equipment's all good to go, but none of it works if you're not able to function. So look after yourselves. Now the final bit that I will cover just on the back end of hydration. It's just
the more you drink, the more you pee.
But actually making sure that you take the opportunity to do that. You know, I have, and perhaps I'm getting a little bit personal now, but I've got quite a weak bladder, so I just need to make sure you know. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, I know that we've gone from here talking about, you know, equipment and tech and whatnot, but you know, it's quite a practical element of the day, to be fair. You know, particularly if, let's say for instance, you are doing so I'm thinking about bride prep, because you tend to spend a bit more time with your brides during prep.
You might not be in and out.
You might not be necessarily a constant feature in the room, but you're going to spend the majority of that morning with the bride. So you have to think about, you know, sometimes you're in a hotel, sometimes they've got just a hotel room, and there could be half a dozen or more of them getting ready in there. So there's one bathroom. You might also have to consider then, on the back of that, the wedding's actually taking place in that hotel. So you know that you want to, or you know that perhaps you've been asked to, or you want to get first look with mum or dad, a reveal to bridesmaids, whatever it might be. So actually you're going to be there with them, potentially right up to the start of the ceremony. You're not going to get a break into that. And then if you'll know what the timeline is after that, so you were going to move then quickly from the ceremony into the drinks reception, the photographs, and then you could be straight into
pee?
Yeah.
I think we've been there so many times,
absolutely,
and learned from it. It's, you've got to take strategic pees.
But what if, you know, how comfortable do we feel actually if you're in that hotel room and there's, like I say, there's the bride, you know, there might be a number of bridesmaids, everyone's using the bathroom. How comfortable do you feel actually saying, oh, sorry, do you mind if I just use the bathroom, please?
Well, what I can tell you is I've never used that bathroom. In all of the weddings we've done, you know, well over 100, never used the bride's bathroom.
Right.
If the hotel does, or the location we're at doesn't have another toilet, I mean, it's different in a house.
Yeah, well, I have.
Well, yeah, well, you
because
might
I've needed it, but
yeah, but as a bloke, I don't feel comfortable going in that toilet.
No, absolutely, but then
what if I pee on the seat?
as a But as a female, you know, there's just an element of, and you know, I think it's only right to bring it up because it is a practicality of the day for me.
It's a huge practicality.
You know, especially when I'm, you know, in one breath I'm saying how important hydration is.
Yeah.
We have to think about that as well.
But you got to make
anyway,
sure.
I'm going to let you move on.
But you got to make sure, basically, I mean, imagine, this is what I said to you when you were kind of saying this is one of the things you were thinking about. I have to think about, if I don't pee before that first look, then we're going straight, you know, foot's flat to the floor, getting to church, for instance. And then we've got an hour-long church ceremony where there's no toilet.
Yeah.
And I've been to plenty of churches in the middle of nowhere where there's no toilet. You can't take a pee outside. I mean, if you're a woman, you definitely can't. If you're a bloke, you can't be peeing at the back of the church. It's just out of order. So then you're like, you can't pee until you then get to the venue. That could be like 3 hours time. If you need a pee for 3 hours, we've talked a lot about this, so might cut this out, who knows.
You get the point.
You get the point.
Yeah.
Just make sure you go to the toilet. So we're not going to talk about the ins and outs of a wedding day right now. That's funny because we
actually kind of just did.
We just talked about the wee ins and outs. But we're doing the first one this year tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So how are you feeling?
I'm a bit nervous.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm a bit nervous because
after all of the weddings that we've done, you feeling nervous?
But you know what? I like the fact that I do. I like the fact that I do because while ever I feel nervous about the lead up to a wedding, then I know that it means something.
I totally feel that.
That it's important.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not gonna talk about the reasons why, but the wedding that we're doing tomorrow, yes, there's been the pandemic, but there's been a huge reason. There are other reasons why this family tomorrow have needed to change the date of their wedding and bring it forward to tomorrow, and it's like I say, I get the nerves before every single wedding. I've got butterflies in my tummy before every single wedding because they're important, and because for me, whether it's film, whether it's photo, or whether it's both of them, it's a privilege to be there. I feel like it's a privilege to be there for those people, and they've asked us to be part of that day and capture that day for them. So that's, for me, that's huge, and I'll never take that for granted. In terms of tomorrow, as we say, because there are other things that are at play here for this particular family, I just know that I want to do the best I possibly can. For them. And as I say, it doesn't, you know, goodness, I'll sound like I'm contradicting myself because it doesn't detract from any of our other clients, not at all. But I think perhaps it's because it's the first one after a couple of months break as well. And yeah, I'll leave it there, I think. So excited, looking forward to it because this one's been a long time coming, but nervous.
Yeah. This is another, you know, it's apart from the stuff that Lyndsey's talking about, this is another postponement that should have already happened. And, you know, it's the first one of the year. We've had a bit of a break. You know, to be fair, I really am excited. I can't wait to get back to it. And I'll be honest, I can't say I've always felt like that. Certainly last year there was a lot of apprehension after the whole pandemic thing. The start of last wedding season for us was quite late. It was summer. It was May, June, July. I didn't feel like I feel now. I feel like I can't wait for this year. That's how I feel.
That's awesome.
But that's because I feel like the last few months we've got a lot of positive stuff from the last few months of last year. Well, the whole of the last half of last year, all those weddings, great experiences, and
learned an awful lot.
Learned so much, and that's the thing. Whichever point you're at in your, we're no means what you would class as veterans.
No,
we're not the oracles of all. We will never profess to be, but we've got some wool on us back with this now, and I'd say we know exactly what we're doing, and we're good, and we can tell you what works and what don't work, and we can tell you, we can pass on our experience and knowledge, but what we'll never do is say we never stop learning.
No.
And I just feel like last year, going into last year, I was like, whoa, I just feel so shaky with all this, and then with some amazing experiences and great results from stuff, and so this year I'm so excited because it's like we're back on it proper now.
Yeah.
So whichever point you're at in your journey with wedding photography and videography, you're going to, just embrace that. Whatever you're feeling, it's supposed to feel like that at that point. So just embrace it.
Yeah. And just to hopefully segue into what I know you want to talk about next. Never stand still with it.
No.
Always look for the next challenge.
Next thing, yeah.
And
it's not just about filming a wedding and or taking photos of a wedding and getting a set thing, is it?
No.
We do it like this. This works.
Yeah.
That's it. No.
No. And we what we've always tried to strive for is not producing a carbon copy anyway. But in terms of the value that you can bring to your clients, the value that you can offer them, the experience that you can offer them, there's something that you've wanted to try for some time, and because there's the two of us tomorrow, we're doing just the film. Tell us about what it is that you want to bring to tomorrow.
We're gonna try and do like a same. Well, if it doesn't end up being a same day edit, then that's cool, because we haven't promised anyone we're doing that.
No.
But we're trying to basically create something as quickly as possible. So whether it's that evening to be able to show at the reception, or whether it's to give them the next day, but it's to get it edited. A teaser trailer, 1 minute type thing, edited together for the same day. And I know like people do this, but for us it's never been something we've actually done, because we've had too much volume, and we've had too much else to focus on, like the kids and other bits of life. So
and
that's
I think probably because, just to touch way back to, sorry, not way back, but just where we started this year's episodes from, in terms of goal setting and kind of being realistic about things. Because we haven't had that structure before, we've had back-to-back weddings, 3-4 day weekends sometimes, haven't we? So we just haven't had the kind of headspace and the flexibility to be able to consider
doing something
like this for couples. And it's because we've taken inspiration from some of the fantastic photographers that we've worked with, isn't it?
See them showing the slideshows and stuff.
Yeah.
And doing like the preview at the after the kind of meal and stuff. And I think from a video perspective, it's possible if you're organised. We're definitely going to try it with the photo stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a case of what I've been thinking about is getting that timeline set up in advance, getting the music set up, and then just knowing how you're going to import the footage when it gets to the meal, and then you get that footage in there and see what you can kind of put together. I know that I can put an edit together in an hour or two, if it's just a minute, So, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
See what happens, and we'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah. So it's in the meal break that we'll get tomorrow in the break while...
We'll see if it happens. It might not even happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap it up now because our food is here and we are starving. Hopefully it's not too cold. What we want to talk about, another thing, just to cover before we say bye, is we're driving up here and we get an email from Adam at Divine Studios, and he has sent us our kind of, something else to look at, basically. So we've been having... they're going through, Divine Studios are going through our branding and our website design, and basically we had a meeting in the week and we went through a couple of hours with Adam. We went through all sorts of stuff to do with the stuff that he'd come up with our branding.
Yeah, initial sort of like text and logos,
initial stuff,
designs, yeah.
And we were just like, whoa, this is great, this is awesome. We talked it all through, and then he was like even showing us stuff on the screen. And when he was showing us stuff on the screen, it was just like ideas that we were talking about. We were like, "Whoa, this is amazing!"
Yeah, the kind of lifetime sort of response to he's sort of listening to what we're saying as we were discussing it, and then he's actively making changes and playing around with things.
What it does that, and we were like, "Whoa!" So we scheduled, he was going to work on it this week, and we scheduled a meeting for next week, but he sent us some stuff today on the drive up here.
5:10 and on a Friday evening,
he sent us some stuff, and we were like, we haven't looked at it yet, so we're going to look at it over our meal, and I'm so excited to see it.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
it was about so we Divine sponsor our podcast, as you know, and the point of perhaps not going through an advert as such like we normally do, we just wanted to highlight that at the end of the podcast, because that really just exemplifies the experience that you get with them. It's not the first time that we've worked with Divine, but the fact that Adam's put the graft in, and it's technically after office hours, but he's worked away to send us something else over based on our conversation on Tuesday of this week. He's no expectations of a response over the weekend, and rightly so. We wouldn't want to trouble him over the weekend. He deserves a break, but we just wanted to highlight at the end of this, because the experience and the service that you receive for them is fantastic.
And I just can't wait to look at what he's done. I'm really excited about it. So, right, well, that's it for this week's episode. It's been a little bit all over the place, but hopefully it's been useful and what have you. And any comments, suggestions in relation to any of this, please drop us a DM on Instagram or send us an email through info@weddingmavericks.com. And wherever you're watching or listening, or you see a picture, whatever, on social media, like, follow and share, all that business. And we're going to have some food and relax before tomorrow. So, see you later.